when we're operating in the fruit of the Spirit, what that means is nothing else is going to be able to, like I said, stand up against the fruit operating in your life. So we already know that we have the fruit of the Spirit because we are a spirit and we already have it. It's not something that we're asking God to give us. We're thanking him for the fruit of the Spirit that always resonates in our spirit. It's like a living flow of fruit, just like living waters. It never runs out, never go dry. You never get thirsty. It's always there, operating in the fullness of the Spirit. And I will give you this diagram. So what we want to do though is release the fruit into our soul, so it starts to become overwhelmed with the fruit. Okay, it starts to become overwhelmed with the release, you could say that, of the fruit. I should bring my notes on this. Okay, so what happens is when you make a decision, for instance, to say, I'm not going to diet anymore, I'm not going to restrict anymore, I'm not going to do that. Some of us can end up going into like a binge eating zone. Okay, some of us have been doing this before. This is just the reality of it before. So what happens is, as you're growing, you may get into more binging. Some people are already doing this. Some people do purge, and some people over exercise to try and compensate for feeling a little bit out of control of sorts. But what we're doing is every time we are releasing and practicing peace, joy, faith, gentleness, love. I hope I haven't missed any. I think I've missed one. Faithfulness, goodness, patience. I missed self-control. Please bear with me on that. I missed self-control. But as we grow in those fruits, what starts to happen is the binge eating, or if you over exercise, or someone that purges, or any of those things, they start to diminish because they're overwhelmed with fruit. Okay, and yes, there is a practice of learning which fruit help in these different scenarios, and that's fine. But simultaneously, we're also focusing on delighting in the Lord, delighting in his presence, delighting in his word. And the more you delight in the Lord is also when we start to find freedom through food. Now, let's say you're starting to heal from binging. Let's say you're starting to learn about peace and the tools that we're going to lay out that's going to help you to walk in peace and things. What is completely normal for somebody who has extremes in this area is to then move over into overeating. So they're not binge eating anymore, and they're not purging anymore, but it's perfectly normal. The reason is because I was reading about this scientifically, that when you use food as a form of delight or peace, it fires off in your brain a connection with food, that it brings this peace and delight in the centers of your brain. And so that's been trained in us. That's been trained. If you are someone that operates in these different things, then that's trained, that's wired into your brain. It's not something that's just, unless you have a healing miracle from the Lord, or in that way, instantaneously, that's not necessarily going to go. I think it's called the reward centers are lit up in your brain because you've trained yourself that certain foods, or even not doing certain things, give me this reward. And I think dieting does that as well. That addiction to the I'm going to get this wonderful end result. I'm going to be on the front page of, I don't know, someone's favorite dieting magazine, and look at me, I did it, right? That builds that reward. Is that not why we're doing diets? Because we're looking ahead to, I'm going to be slim like so-and-so who also lost 40 pounds. That's why some of us struggle with letting go of dieting, because we wouldn't do it if it wasn't giving us some kind of reward in it. Okay. So when I've noticed that someone then moves from here, they start, for me, I took joy the wrong angle. I was like, yay, I'm free, right? And what happened was naturally, you can start to overeat and emotionally eat on certain foods. And again, I just want to just reiterate that this is part of the process for somebody who's walking through this, because again, those reward centers are still trying to heal, but you're at the same time delighting. And at the same time, you're starting to learn about love. Okay, you're starting to learn about gentleness. You're starting to practice being able to pause, okay, in the middle of what you're doing. And what happens is then when somebody next starts again, they'll keep walking through the fruit, and you're practicing and you're learning what all of these mean in this area of food. What can then happen is someone's not overeating anymore. They're not emotionally eating anymore, but now they may start to have more intense cravings for highly palatable foods. So what that means is, okay, I'm not overeating the Snickers, but I have this kind of intense need for the Snickers, right? And you feel that craving building up in you. And there's nothing, you know me, I'm not against any foods, I'm not against Snickers, but the point where the pressure in your life is building up to the point where you feel like, I just need that. I need that. Again, as you continue to go up the ladder, if you were, of delighting, as you continue to walk in, say, for instance, the goodness of the Lord, and you're tasting and seeing that the Lord is good in that moment, in whatever was the trigger for that, your cravings for those things start to diminish because you've tasted something sweeter. You've tasted of something much, much, much more nourishing. Again, I'm not saying I'm against highly palatable foods. There's a place for them, but not to the point where it's mastering you. Remember, all things are permissible. All things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. I will not be mastered. And so that's what we're talking about. It's when you're being mastered, when it's starting, when the food is calling you from the refrigerator, eat me now, right? And it's often trying to bring that urgency. And we know that with Lord, I'm resting. Okay. So again, what starts to happen is once those start to be healed, okay, you start to walk in freedom and balance. And what is freedom and balance? You don't need to control food. You don't need to spend endless hours calorie counting, weighing food. You don't, and I'm not just talking about having some kind of peace, but in your mind, you're still calculating the calories. Let's be honest. We're talking about, I have freedom, but I also have balance. And I love what Cindy gave the definition of self-control. It's not down here in the green, right? It's not, wow, I can now eat cookies and the host like, yeah, eat 50 boxes of them. That's not that. I love what she said, that self-control means moderation in all things. It's that middle place. That's why I use the word balance. It's that middle place. Yeah, sure, I could have the cookie. I just don't feel that it's calling me and demanding that I eat all of them right now, or else. Okay, because that's not the gentleness of the Lord, is it? So that's what happens. And I wanted to read Psalms 1, verse 1 to 3. Perfectly oh my goodness. I said to Matthew and the Holy Spirit, how it works with me. Matthew and the Holy Spirit, there's a verse. I know there's a verse talking about the concept that when we're overwhelmed in a good way with the fruit, okay, when we're overwhelmed with the fruit, when we allow the work of delighting and applying the fruit to overwhelm our souls, when it starts to heal our habits, when it starts to direct how we handle life's pressures, because they're going to come, those ones you can't avoid. As much as you can't avoid food, you can't avoid life's pressures, but we can learn how to operate within them. When we're walking in the fruit and it's overwhelming us, there's no power of flesh, the enemy, others, the world, that can contend with someone operating in all the 9 fruits. It's impossible. Impossible. And again, like I said, the powerhouses of delighting in his word, his presence, intimacy, grace, humility. This is living from the finished work of the Spirit, of the cross. Okay. I love Isaiah 61, where it says, he's come to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of God's vengeance, to comfort all who mourn, to console the mourners in Zion, to give them a crown of beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, a garment of praise for a spirit of despair. So they will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. And verse 4, that they will rebuild the ancient ruins. They will restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities and the desolations of many generations. And I believe when we walk in the fruit for our healing of our body, things start to be restored. The glory of the latter house will be greater than the former. All that was ruined and damaged starts to get repaired.